We do curls to get stronger at weighted chin-ups. It's a statement I often say. It's a statement I often say, but what people need to understand when we say something like that is that we are talking about a mindset and a philosophy. It's not saying that doing curls will not make your biceps bigger, right? It's about the mindset and how we approach exercises. And generally, my channel, those who follow these sort of philosophies, our goals tend to be strength and performance oriented, right? Now, that doesn't mean that everyone who does this feels 100% that way. I certainly have plenty of clients who do want to look jacked. They do have a certain look they want on top of the other endeavors. And in the case of those clients, we make some little minor adjustments to their training. Right? We make minor adjustments to their training. There's a little bit of things we can do to help them get a look they want while still maximizing strength. Because remember, to maximize strength, we need to maximize hypertrophy. And that's largely true of almost any sport that you're going to compete in that has a strength component. That would include even fighting sports. And again, people will say things like, well, I don't want to go out of my weight class. Well, you need to pick a better weight class for your frame then. Because if you are capable of adding enough muscle to get outside of a weight class, especially if you're going to get fairly lean, then that's not the right weight class for your structure and height. It really isn't. You're probably going to be better off in a different weight class. But I digress. Back to the point. We need to maximize hypertrophy, right? And it kind of comes back to when you think about what I'm making with this statement of doing curls to increase our weighted chin up, it falls in line with what I always tell you guys, that you need to get big if you want to get strong. And I'm not saying that it works the other way. I'm not saying that if you just do a bunch of heavy singles that you're going to get big, because you probably won't. A bunch of heavy singles and doing really heavy work will actualize the strength potential that you have created with the muscle tissue that you have and within the limits of your personal leverages, right? Because what gives us the basis of our strength on any movement? Strength being the ability to produce force against an external object. What gives us that? Our muscle mass involved in that movement and our moment arms and levers, right? Our genetic leverage. Because that's what it is. Your bone structure and your muscle insertion points, how long your arms, legs, torsos, things like that are, affect your leverages for any given movement. And we have different leverages. That's why some people are just better at some movements than others. Like arm length is a massive one, particularly for things like the bench press and the deadlift. Right? Your arm length is very critical. A couple inches difference in arm length is an enormous advantage or disadvantage on the bench press or the deadlift, depending on which one you're looking at, and they're opposites, right? What's good for one is bad for the other. A couple inches of arm length is a game changer for those lifts. And we all have different length arms. They vary a lot in humans. They vary a lot. So outside of your leverages, it is your hypertrophy that determines most of your strength potential. That's the overwhelming majority of it, are those two factors. Everything else accounts for less than 10%. What do we mean everything else? Muscle fiber distribution, neuromuscular efficiency, intramuscular coordination, all those things. Those things that we maximize. But your base is going to be hypertrophy. And the quickest way, if you're already decently strong because you already have some of those other things, the best way to add more strength is to just get bigger. You need bigger muscles. A larger muscle is simply capable of producing more force, right? It has a larger cross-sectional area, has more big muscle fibers that can contract, they can create more force. Again, within the limits of your leverages and those other factors. There's more potential. So when we start thinking in terms of our big movements, we have to look at them and find our weak links. What's the fastest way to get good at any exercise? Well, people say to practice it. Well, yeah, that's true. Practicing it helps. Helps a lot. Not going to deny that. Right? What else? You find the weakest link and you work on it. In other words, if you find the strongest link in an exercise and you continue to train it hard and hypertrophy it, will you get stronger? Sure. Sure. You'll still get stronger. Are you going to get strongest as you could and as fast as you could if you fixed the weakest link. No. So if on weighted chin-ups, your biceps were the weak link, and that is very commonly a weak link, what could you do about that? Train your biceps. And notice the way that I'm doing the curls in this video. They're very similar to a drag curl. Why? Because there's a heavy weight at peak contraction. I'm moving the bicep through the same range of motion it would get on a weighted chin-up. We're still getting a full stretch at the bottom under load, pulling my elbows back so that when the arm is bent at full contraction, the heaviest weight is there, and it's more weight than you can usually handle. You can curl up a lot more weight this way than you can actually hold at that peak contraction, because it's putting the bicep at such an enormous leverage disadvantage relative to gravity. You just can't hold it, but it's hitting that peak contraction with a really heavy weight. So that means you're training the joint angle specificity there to have the most tension when that bicep is completely contracted, which again, also a position to where it's capable of contracting the most muscle fibers, right? Muscle is now shortened. It's gone from a stretched position into a shortened one. Well, what happens at the top of a chin-up? And where it's the hardest part of a chin-up is usually the top. So we get past the halfway point. So if your biceps are a weak link, training them, any training for them will get your chin up stronger, right? Because if you train the bicep, it'll get stronger. It'll get bigger. Hypertrophy gives it more strength potential. You could give some specificity of training and do fairly low reps like I was doing there, pretty heavy weights. You could focus more on the peak contraction. Well, what do you get from all that? Well, the heavier weight, better intramuscular coordination, right? Peak contraction's doing it at the same joint angle specificity where biceps really have to work super hard on a chin up and where they really limit you. Okay, so you could do a movement like that, and then what happens? That bicep training carries over to a bigger chin up. What does a bigger chin up give us? Half the muscles in the upper body. Okay. If you get stronger at chin ups, a lot of muscles are going to grow. Mid and lower traps, lats, biceps, forearms, arguably, possibly even some upper chest, maybe the long head of your triceps, again, depending upon how big they are relative to everything else. There's still some tension there. But we could argue about all those primary movers. Those are not really points of contention. Everyone understands chin-ups make your biceps, lats, half of your trap, all of that grow, right? A lot of the other muscles of your back make your forearms grow. So by spending some extra time training the bicep, we're getting improvement in all those areas because we have increased our ability to produce force on the weighted chin up. And if we can produce more force, we can do more workload on a set for set basis. Therefore, we can get a larger overall growth stimulus. So in this case, spending a little time on a smaller muscle like the bicep, if it's limiting your chin up, helps the whole system grow. Right? And we look at it from that philosophy of saying, okay, I want to get better at these lifts to get bigger and stronger overall. What's my weak link? And if the bicep is the weak link, and it's a common weak link on the chin up, then doing some specific training for it will make you bigger and stronger. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.